So the Department of Minerals and Energy released the 2022 mine health and safety statistics on Tuesday. According to the report, 49 mine workers died on the job in 2022. Now, that's a decline in 25 deaths compared to 74 who died in 2021 and the 65 who died in 2020. 2,056 serious injuries were reported in 2022. Now that's compared to 2,143. The year 2022, the report has been released a few days before the Mining Indaba that's taking place in Cape Town. It starts next week, Monday. Should be a very interesting one in the lead up to the State of the Nation address. That's next week, Thursday. So it certainly is going to be a big week for South Africa, and all eyes on Cape Town. Well, someone who's following this very closely and will be there is Benchmarks Foundation lead researcher David van Wyk, and he joins us this morning. David, always such a pleasure chatting to you. Good morning to you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having us on the show. I think it's a very important topic that we are discussing.
Certainly, and I tell you what, as I'm looking this morning, and my computer dies as I was looking at the article, but perhaps you can tell us a bit more. As I was researching a little bit more about these statistics, it also came out that for the very first time, and I'm not sure how long, this January, we did not report one single fatality in the mining sector. This is January 2023. We're doing something right here. What's going on?
Well, I think that, we normally have quite a lot of fatalities in the month of January, just at the end of the Christmas season when mines restart. But we are concerned because, the Jagersfontein disaster that happened was a mine disaster, and more than 6 people died in that disaster. They were not mine workers, they were members of the public. And we think that, members of the public who die as a result of mine disaster should also be included. More than 100 people had broken arms and legs following that particular event. Then we had the disaster in Boksburg where the gas tanker exploded. It's a Department of Minerals and Energy, and gas is a product of mining in South Africa as well. And, mine disasters do not stop at the fence of the mine. They go beyond the mine. We've had really, really serious fatalities in the area of Riverlee as well, where people who are on oxygen, their electronic oxygen devices, simply stop working when there's load shedding, okay? And then you can die in the middle of the night when your ventilator no longer works. And we've had people dying there as well. And those people are on ventilators because of the mine dust in the area that comes across. So we really have to redefine fatalities and injuries and so on, and even mine-related illnesses and so on, to include near mine communities that suffer the impact of mining, but are not included in the statistics that are released every year. The Jagersfontein issue is for me a critical issue because that is now slowly being forgotten. While everyone was very shocked on the 11th of September of 2022, that community is now suffering there on its own. I got photographs from the community this morning of school children trying to get to school with an area that's again flooded by water, and the tailings that flooded down the valley get soft every time there's water and poses a risk to people walking across or sinking into it and so on, especially children. So I'm worried about the way in which we do statistics in this country and the kind of people that we exclude. We had lots of falls of ground accidents with zamazamas as well last year. Quite a number of them died. And the reason why people are dying in this small-scale mining is simply because we're not regulating it, we're not controlling it, we're not managing it. So it's chaotic, and lots of people are dying there, but they are not included in the statistics that are being released.
Yeah, which is, I'm so glad you've highlighted that, because that is very, very important. And perhaps there needs to be the reimagining of this, because anybody living in and around a mine is at risk, and this should fall under the responsibility of the mine if in fact something does happen. But this is a question that certainly I hope is going to be raised, and one that we can look at more seriously. But if we look at what has been reported in terms of the fatalities, in which mining sectors did we see them happening? Is it gold, platinum, coal? And how has the sector received the report, including research organizations like Benchmark? You've told us about those that are excluded.
I think that what is important here is to note that gold fatalities have fallen by 50%, which is quite significant. But we must also take note that deep level gold mining is in steep decline, and a lot of the mining now is open cast mining, and you don't have faults of ground in open cast mining. You only have that in underground situations. So we have to attribute the fall of fatalities in gold mines to the fact that gold mines are slowly in decline. Many mines have closed down, and so they no longer pose a risk to workers working underground. Of course, a larger number of fall of ground fatalities occurred in platinum mines. There are quite a lot of underground platinum mines still, and so more workers are employed within the platinum sector than in the gold sector, and so you would expect that there would be more fatalities in the platinum sector. And then, of course, coal is open cast, mostly it's truck drivers and machine operators and so on. There you would not have the kind of fatalities that you would have in platinum and gold. So there are definitely positive declines, but we must also understand that against the background of a changing mining industry.
Yeah. And if we talk about that background, because that was one of the things that I was going to ask you, is, the mining activity, the industrialization of the mining industry and less people going underground and these kind of things, are these impacting these figures and findings as well?
Well, they certainly are. And I think that we are having a situation of, possibly in South Africa, because of the decline in minerals, especially in gold, we are actually having a process of deindustrialization and mine abandonment. And so while formal mine workers will no longer die, the small-scale mine workers in Zamazama certainly will, because the section is completely unregulated. The use of technology in mining in South Africa is actually very difficult, because the mines were traditionally designed with a very narrow circumference of the shafts going down. It's very difficult to take machines down those shafts. You have to disassemble them and reassemble them underground if you want to use them. And the underground conditions are not really conducive to the use of technology in the same way as it is, for example, in Sweden and so on. So mining will remain labor intensive, but gold mining is in steep decline in South Africa, simply because the resource is running out. What is left is too deep to get to, and in many cases underwater as well. So I would not put too much to the whole idea that, oh no, workers are being replaced by machines in South African mines. South African mining is in decline, and the big mining companies like AngloGold Ashanti have already left the country, BHP Billiton have already left the country, and I project that by 2025, 2026, most of the major mining companies will have left. And we need to really plan for medium and smaller scale mining to ensure that that takes place in a safe environment, and that people don't die when we do make this transition from large scale to smaller scale and medium scale mining.
I want to talk a little bit about the Mining Indaba that is starting on Monday. You will be there having a presence, obviously raising issues, bringing up very important things. I mean, certainly is an important year. We're seeing the world basically open now. And I say that after COVID because of China's absence obviously being felt quite a lot. But now it looks like we up and running. So talk to us about some of the challenges and the things that this Mining Indaba are going to be addressing.
Well, I think that one of the important things for us, and we're in the alternative Mining Indaba that takes place parallel to the main Mining Indaba, where the civil society groups and the communities affected by mining come together and discuss the issues that affect them. And we are concerned that most of the major mining companies, Sibanye, Anglo Platinum, Impala, and so on, are raking in major profits. They are making profits more than they've ever made before, with a 40% return on investment in some cases, and one CEO giving himself a 60 million rand bonus. We are concerned that when mines do have these super profits, those years when they do have the super profits, very little of that actually goes back into the community and goes back into the country as a whole. We are sitting with a country where we are regularly told that we are on the verge of a recession, that things are very tough, that unemployment is very high. But when we look at the returns on investment for mining in this country, it is exceptional, and the mines are making very big profits.
I mean, when we look at the shift in mining, because obviously there's so much talk in terms of the world looking elsewhere now. And obviously it's not only about the minerals that we talk, platinum, gold and all of that. People are looking for alternative. And I mean, there's much talk of Africa being this continent that you're finding America and Europe now wanting to come into to lessen its dependence on China and to come in and find things to make up their batteries, to make up all of these alternative energy, which is now the buzzword and everybody working towards that. That, I imagine, is going to take a big crux of this summit into consideration as well. Talk to us about that.
Well, lithium production, and South Africa has some lithium. Zimbabwe, of course, in Africa also has some lithium. And then cobalt and manganese are extremely important minerals. South Africa has more than 90% of the world's manganese. Manganese is critically important for battery production and so on. And so what we are seeing is that at the moment, most of the manganese actually leaves the country for China and for Europe and so on. What we would like to see is for manganese to be beneficiated in the country, and that we actually create the alternative energy factories and processing plants and so on inside South Africa rather than exporting these critical minerals. In fact, we should have a list of strategic minerals that we make it very expensive to export so that people are encouraged to actually create the manufacturing capacity inside the country. We can become a world leader in terms of the manufacturing of alternative energy technologies and so on. And we are in a very unique situation that China and the West are competing for our attention, and we can be much more demanding in terms of the export of our minerals. It doesn't just have to go out willy-nilly in the way that it is doing at the moment.
I listen to you and I'm crossing everything and hoping that is it. We're in a very tough time, and when you are saying what you're saying. And then I remember Sakina having an interview. She was also out and about in Cape Town where we were talking about this and saying that we as a country do not manufacture was it a solar panel, SK? We don't manufacture solar panels. And that got me, that really got me, that we do not manufacture a single solar panel within the borders of our country, and yet that is the biggest demand globally. We have to think further than just the product. Is that not correct?
Well, that's correct. You see, the thing is that what's interesting about solar panels is that in the early, around 2007, 2008, solar panel designs and so on were actually designed by a professor at the University of the Free State, who then sold the intellectual property to Germany because the South African government at that time was not interested at all. And we are now having to export the raw materials for solar panels to import solar panels into the country. The same thing with batteries. We've got all the manganese in the world. We've got some lithium and so on as well. We could be manufacturing batteries and inverters and so on that are very important for the alternative energy production, which is where we are moving, where we are rapidly moving, and for which a lot of money is being made available to the country to change in that direction. The problem for me is that if we do change in that direction, whether we will in fact own the capacity or whether it will be foreign companies who will own that capacity and we will be buying the products at global prices from them instead of making it available to our public.
David, I know we'll chat to you again, no doubt, without a doubt, next week, but I've got to leave it there, got to wrap it. David van Wyk, thank you. Thanks so much for talking to us. Very interesting conversation with David van Wyk, lead researcher at Benchmarks Foundation.